My grandpa passed away last year, leaving me everything he owned. I never had any contact with my parents, and honestly, I'm not even sure if they're still alive. Family drama. But that's a story for another time. Basically, I inherited everything he had, including a cabin up in Mount Mitchell, North Carolina. I'd never even heard of the place. It didn't really surprise me that he owned a cabin in the mountains, though. He always loved nature and isolation. What bothered me was the fact that he'd never mentioned this place to me. He used to tell me everything, or at least I thought he did. He passed away last January, but it wasn't until July of this year that I finally made it out there. Part of the reason was fear. The fact that he'd never talked about that cabin made me uneasy, not to mention I was still dealing with the grief. He was everything to me, the only family I had. When he died, I felt completely alone. By July, I finally felt ready. I took 2 weeks off from work and decided to go check out the place. The cabin was completely isolated, with access only by a dirt road. When I arrived, I expected to find an abandoned, weathered building. To my surprise, it was in good condition. It didn't look like it had been vacant for very long. I decided to take a walk around, explore the area, and I was pleasantly surprised. The landscape was stunning, peaceful, and calm. The kind of place my grandpa would have loved. Inside, the cabin was simple, but it was enough for 2 people to live comfortably. The weirdest part, though, was how well kept the interior was. Almost like someone was still living there. Even the smell was like a lived-in home. Maybe a friend of my grandpa's had been taking care of it? Even though the idea made me uncomfortable, I didn't suspect anything serious at the time. The first day went by without any problems. I felt relaxed, happy to have inherited something so special. I felt a renewed connection to my grandpa, like I was closer to him being there. The only thing that unsettled me was a trapdoor I found in the floor, hidden under a rug. Inside, there was a silver box with supplies, like someone had prepped to stay in that cramped space for days. The trapdoor was discreet, something most people wouldn't notice, but my grandpa used to talk about them all the time. He was convinced everyone should have one. At first, I thought it was odd, but over time, it became one of those quirks of his that I just ignored. Now, after everything that happened, I realize his obsession with trapdoors might have been more than just a quirk. It might have been rooted in some kind of trauma he carried. That night, I heard a sound outside the cabin that made my blood run cold. It was like someone was scratching at the wood with their nails. My first thought was that it could be an animal. I walked over to the window to see if I could spot anything, but I couldn't see a thing. The noise stopped, but the uneasiness stuck with me. I decided to call one of my best friends, who knew where I was. He almost came with me on this trip, but work stuff held him back at the last minute. While I was talking to him, something froze me in place. On the other side of the cabin, pressed up against the window, was a man, staring right at me. The terror I felt was indescribable. My heart was pounding, and I could hardly breathe. It was like the fear was physically crushing me like a mini heart attack. I ran to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and screamed at my friend to call the cops. I peeked through a crack in the door and saw the man moving from the window toward the front door, trying to force it open. He clearly wanted to get inside. The moment that terrified me the most was when I saw the blade of a massive knife stab through the wood of the door. The door was sturdy, but it wouldn't hold for long. That's when I remembered the trapdoor. Without thinking twice, I shut off the cabin lights, threw a chair against the opposite window, shattering it completely, and hid in the trapdoor. The idea was to make him think I'd escaped through the window and wasn't inside the cabin anymore. Maybe that way, he wouldn't look for me and wouldn't find the hiding spot. The silence inside the trapdoor was deafening. I could hear him enter, his footsteps echoing through the cabin. My body was shaking, probably from the shock. In that tiny space, a million thoughts ran through my mind. Who was this guy? Did he want to kill me, or did he live here and think I'd broken in? Either way, His aggression made it clear he didn't have good intentions. Time seemed to drag on forever. Suddenly, the footsteps stopped, and silence filled the cabin again. My heart started racing all over. Had he left, or was he just waiting for me to come out? The anxiety almost made me bolt, but I forced myself to stay still, waiting for the cops to arrive. After what felt like hours, I heard the sound of cars outside. The police had finally shown up. But by the time I climbed out of the trapdoor, the man was gone, leaving no trace behind. Other than the damage to the cabin, they didn't find anything. I reached out to some old friends of my grandpa's, hoping to learn something about the cabin, but no one even knew it existed. Now, the cabin still stands, empty, but marked by that day. I've thought many times about whether it could have been someone my grandpa knew. Maybe from a past life he never told me about. If that were the case, though, there'd be no reason for them to run when the cops showed up. About a week ago, the police called to say they found bones near the cabin. I have no idea if it has anything to do with that man. I just hope it's got nothing to do with my grandpa. Hey, Horror Spectator here. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you're always in the loop when new videos drop. We post 2 videos every week. If you're really into this content, consider sharing it with your friends. It really helps us grow this community. Now, let's move on to the second story. It all started back in 2015 when I was working at Walmart. For several years, I thought everything was fine, especially during the COVID pandemic when we were forced to stay home. I genuinely believed that everything that had happened was behind me. However, about 2 months ago, I started getting signs that it wasn't over yet. In fact, it was just about to begin. That year, I was in my last year of college and working at Walmart to help my parents pay the bills. I've always had a very youthful appearance. I'm not one of those guys with a thick beard. In fact, for years, I struggled with the fact that I couldn't grow a single hair on my face. Plus, I've always been relatively short, so people thought I was at least 5 years younger than I actually was. I got used to the fact that most of the people trying to steal would end up at my register. With my innocent-looking face, they figured they could fool me, or at least, that I'd be easier to deceive. Over time, I learned to pick up on a few signs. People would linger near the registers, watching us before picking their target. They thought they were being discreet, but I started noticing these behaviors and could anticipate the thefts before they even happened. As soon as I saw someone acting like that, I'd notify security, and they'd handle the situation. On the day everything started, I thought it was just another one of those cases. There was a man who had been standing behind some shelves for over 5 minutes watching me. He'd come and go, walking up and down the aisle, and I was convinced I knew what he was up to. Once again, I alerted security, and didn't think about it anymore. That day, I left work later than usual. As I walked toward my car, I noticed some quick movement near one of the vehicles in the parking lot. I saw it out of the corner of my eye, but didn't think much of it, until I realized the person was picking up speed and heading toward me. Without looking directly at them, I ran to my car and locked the door. When they saw I had locked myself in, they stopped and started running in the opposite direction, but not before I saw their face. It was the same guy I had caught trying to steal. At the time, I thought he was just pissed that I had reported him. I started my car and went home. Probably the dumbest decision I made in this whole situation. He followed me, and at certain points during the drive, I realized he might be tailing me. I should have tried to lose him, but I convinced myself I was being paranoid. I got home, locked the door tightly, and turned on the lights. That was the second dumb decision of the night. Not only had I shown him where I lived, but also the floor and apartment number. In the days that followed, I started receiving little gifts at my front door. Things that seemed insignificant, but were absolutely terrifying. One day, I got 2 Ken dolls handcuffed to each other, lying in a plastic bed. On another occasion, a ring. I went to the police, but they almost laughed at me. The only person who took it seriously was a female officer who explained that, since no clear crime had been committed, they couldn't do anything yet. That genuinely scared me. They were basically telling me nothing could be done unless he attacked me. For years, I lived like that, and as horrible as it is to admit, I almost got used to having a stalker. Ever since that night in the car, he never physically approached me again, but he watched me at work, and he watched me at home. Sometimes, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and see him sitting on a bench across the street, staring at my window. He also followed me to college. I ended up seeing a therapist several times. Then the pandemic hit, and everything stopped. I didn't see him outside my building anymore, and the gifts stopped coming. I realized it was the perfect time to move, and as soon as I could, I did. I lived in semi-peace until about 2 months ago. I say semi because the feeling of being followed once you've been never fully goes away. 2 months ago, the letters started, along with knocks at my door in the middle of the night. I was desperate because I knew exactly who was behind it. Since the police wouldn't help, and I could sense something was about to happen, I set up a few hiding spots around the house, just in case, and I'm glad I did. 3 weeks ago, it was 2 a.m. when I woke up to a loud knock on my door. I had been dreaming, so my brain took a second to process what was happening. When the knock came again, I knew it was him. The banging got more violent, and he started trying to break down the door. Without thinking twice, I got up and hid in the closest spot I had set up for situations like this. In the bathroom, I had built a cabinet with a false back. The back could be easily removed and put back, and I fit inside without anyone being able to tell. I hid as fast as I could, and, once inside, called the police, trying to speak as quietly as possible. I heard him break down the door and move through the house, smashing things as he went. Up until that moment, I thought he had developed some kind of obsession with me, but I never imagined he'd be capable of such violence. I couldn't understand what had made him so angry or what he planned to do if he found me. Everything went silent until I realized he was in the bathroom with me. He opened the cabinet, and I felt my heart skip a few beats. I covered my mouth with my hand to stop myself from hyperventilating. I felt him place his hand on the false bottom. I really thought I was going to die. But then I heard him stand up, close the cabinet, and leave the apartment. The more I think about that moment, the more certain I am that he knew I was there. But the fact that he didn't do anything leaves me completely perplexed. I don't know what he wants, and that is genuinely terrifying. The police arrived relatively quickly, but it felt like an eternity. I was terrified, fearing for my life. When they came in, the house was completely destroyed, especially my bedroom. To this day, they still haven't found him, but right now, I'm under police protection, and I just want this nightmare to end soon.